So recognizing awareness, like direct recognition of the cognizing nature of the presence, that's often described as the direct path in non-duality. So what does that mean experientially? How do you apply this, this path, this pathless path? So awareness is here a pointer. So it's pointing to that in the experience, which is immediately present prior to having any thoughts about it, prior to any thinking processes, prior to any reflection. It's that pure cognizing nature of the experience, of any experience. So often our attention is immersed into the content of experience, into thought patterns, narratives, images, mental representations, memories, projections. So when we are given this pointer to put attention to that cognizing nature, which makes possible, in the first place, the experience of thought, for example. So it's exactly the same experience, exactly the same thought, but it makes a difference between day and night, whether you experience it unconsciously, kind of absorbed inside the thought, identified with the thought, or there is this lucid, crystal clear, aware, cognizing recognition of awareness as the fundamental nature of that experience of thought appearing. So this is just one way pointing it out. But what often happens, generally speaking, with people when they are first introduced to this direct approach, is that it's very hard for us to directly taste that immediacy, that direct, non-referential immediacy. Because the habit of being pulled into the thoughts and into the belief that you are the thinker of thoughts is so strong that it doesn't just instantly collapse just because we hear the pointer. I mean, it might happen like that if we are in the right place in our life, so to speak, that the causes and conditions align, and then we hear this pointer and boom, it just clarity, instant clarity, recognition, which is always grace, by the way. That direct recognition is not anything we could generate by any kind of egoic effort, any kind of individual effort. So it could happen like that, but most often it seems to be that when people are introduced to this being aware of awareness, so to speak, that it's not really accessible, right? It's not accessible, that immediacy. So even that suggestion of being aware of awareness, it becomes this type of efforting, this type of kind of mental activity where there is an attempt to be aware of something, and it's which is not this spontaneous, totally effortless, natural self-awareness, like cognizing nature. So that's why, even though the direct path is so easy, like so stupidly easy, it's also in a way an advanced practice. Even it's a practice without any practice, right? It's a methodless method. It is advanced in a sense that we need to be in a certain phase in our journey, in our awakening journey, for this type of pointers to experientially land. So the way it usually happens, that it first we get a taste of it first through having someone pointing it out to us, a teacher or someone who is speaking from that place. Or sometimes it could even happen by reading a book where this is being pointed out by someone who is speaking from that place. And then we have this direct recognition of the knowing nature, or Rigpa, as it is called in Georgian. And after that, there is then this real work of familiarizing yourself with that direct recognition, right? Really owning it so that it becomes a totally spontaneous, moment by moment, natural reality of your way of being. So that's not something that happens overnight, no matter how powerful and life-altering that initial recognition is. So yeah, so if it feels like that, when you are kind of just attuning with that quality of presence, that immediate, vivid activity of cognition, like prior to any interpretation. So if it feels like it makes you feel confused, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying to be aware of awareness, but it doesn't sound like the way they describe it. It doesn't sound like any kind of expansive or spiritual experience. It's just, I'm here, just me, the person trying to be aware of aware, and it's futile, it doesn't work, I'm not getting it, maybe I'm doing it wrong. So if it feels like that, don't worry, because this is so common, and I hear this constantly when I have dialogues with people. And it doesn't mean that this approach, this direct approach, it's not available for you. Like it might just mean that at the moment there are other approaches that are more supportive for the process, and then when the causes and conditions align, these pointers, they actually land, and you may even recognize that in some way they landed already when you heard them, even though there wasn't that experiential clarity, but something in us sometimes recognizes them, even before any kind of conscious awareness. That's how all-encompassing this is, this knowing nature. It's really primordially present, the recognition. It's already there. In some level, you already know this. You've never been anything other than this. So yeah, don't despair if it feels confusing at times, because that's just so normal. And if it feels like when you attune with this presence and relax into it, that all you can feel is contraction or tension, or there's a storm of thoughts, and you find yourself being pulled inside the thoughts, thinking about the thoughts, pushing and pulling against the thoughts. And just know that already this is part of the path. It is a practice of its own. just being available for this present nature of the experience in whatever way it arises. So even if it arises as apparent obscuration, if you're fully available for that, that's perfect. That's the way, and that's the practice, the methodless method. This unconditional availability of what is. So even if there's resistance towards what is, then unconditional availability to feel that resistance. If there's struggle with what is, then unconditional availability for that struggle, like indirect experience. Like what's actually happening here? How am I struggling and why? What beliefs are functioning? Because the rest is up to grace. That direct recognition that changes your life, for sure. Even it's so ordinary in a way and so flavorless, so experienceless. It's not an experience like the mind expects it to be. So when it happens, it's purely grace. So there's nothing you can do to make that happen. The only thing you can do, as long as there is a sense of being a person, is to make yourself available, to put yourself into this place of unguardedness, openness, softening, and vulnerability, trust, curiosity, playfulness, commitment. And then you just stay there. And if you keep doing this, there's no way that you can avoid facing your true nature. And you will have to move through doubt. And maybe you will doubt everything. You'll doubt the practice, you'll doubt the path, you doubt all the teachers, all the pointers, and that's part of it. But this is possible. It's just very hard to describe it because you can't make it happen. And that's part of that paradox. Part of that balance between total effortlessness and surrender and letting go of desire for awakening, and then making that effort, that single-minded effort of orienting towards this possibility experientially. And I know for sure that this recognition changed my life. It saved me in every possible way. But when it appeared, this permanent clarity, and it was so faint in the beginning, so subtle, almost not noticeable, and yet it was so obviously something very different than anything I've ever experienced, and more familiar than familiar. It was different because it was abiding. But it was familiar because it brought with it such a profound unification, like throughout infinite timelines and lifetimes. And through the integration, acclimation, familiarization. That's an unspeakable integration and unification in the body-mind in this lifetime. So that's why it's a deep thing for me to speak about it. And I do speak about it from this place of conviction that I know it's possible. And I hope to transmit that trust and remembrance. This possibility of liberation. And it's beyond words to describe, but that pure, immaculate, untouched nature of that empty, cognizing spontaneity. Like when it reveals itself, when it makes itself available, when it offers itself, when it permits the experience, when it redeems every experience you could ever have, then you will see that at the time when you were practicing and kind of being aware of awareness, that was still this efforting, and what you were thinking is that presence, that awareness, it was still just a sensation. It was still a subtle form of conceptualization. Because when this pure immediacy, this vivid, empty activity, when that makes itself known, this non-conceptual nature, when you really taste it, then you know the difference. But it's not an experience. It's beyond mind's capacity to understand or project what it could even be. If it's not an experience, if it's not a state, what could it be? So it's beyond mind's capacity to grasp. It's not something you could ever own. It's not something you could ever claim. It's not any kind of state where you could establish yourself, thinking that now you're done. It's nothing like that. Like living this recognition is constant commitment to being available like this. Yeah, it's pure spontaneity, but it's also fully engaged. It's fully present, fully responsive. Fully giving itself moment by moment. And there's even another step to make when this starts to stabilize and clarify and deepen. And that's something which is so unexpected in a way, and even more paradoxical and mind-blowing. That's when you really, really realize the empty nature of this vivid presence. That's when the inherent existence, the inherent nature of it just evaporates. dissolves is seen to be never there. That subtle way to reify the experience through inherent existence, through belief in inherent existence. This may sound abstract. It's nothing abstract. It's the most real and in that way, concrete, felt, direct sense of what everything is. Not as something fixed, not as something you could ever explain, because that's the nature of emptiness, this non-fixating and unfixed nature. But that's anatta. So it's not a negation of that pure awareness, that pure I am awareness is not nothing other than it. It's just that you finally see through that illusion, of the I sense that can hide itself even in this direct recognition of awareness, this subtle form of constructing identity. Someone said it very beautifully, that this I am presence, no matter how vivid and luminous and liberating it is, it's still a way of holding in disguise of letting go. And this may make no sense until you see this, until you realize this. But this is freedom beyond any ideas of freedom. That's when every sensation, the luminosity of it, the pristine nature of it, the unfiltered simplicity of it, this dynamic, actionless activity. That's when all words like awakening and liberation lose their meaning, because they can only make sense to that sense of self, that I am sense. Like beyond that, there is this bizarre terrain of no self. And that's when you really know yourself to be home.